For spine-chilling and sinister cases of déjà vu, discover the Unexplained, Cursed Secrets revealed Sarah had no idea that the quiet neighborhood of Maplewood held dark secrets beneath its picturesque surface. Just hours ago, she had staggered home after another grueling night shift, the scent of jasmine wrapping around her like a familiarity she desperately clung to. Yet, something was wrong. Shadows danced behind her eyelids, and whiffs of fear skittered under her skin. As she entered her house, the warmth of family beckoned, but her heart prickled. It was there, lurking in the mundane and unease, an unseen force tugging at her mind with contradictory memories. That night, while preparing Chloe's favorite grilled cheese and tomato soup, the living room television flickered on. The news anchor's voice droned about unsettling events in Maplewood, missing persons, whispered rumors, secrets that sent shivers down her spine. But it was the symbols etched into the surface of her coffee table that stole her focus, dark shapes swirling in her thoughts. They felt familiar, like pieces of nightmares she'd tried to forget. Hunched over the stove, Sarah felt the room twist around her, the echoes of laughter from outside melding with whispers of dread. "Mommy!" The sound of Chloe's giggles drifted to her from the backyard, but it was tainted, twisted. As Sarah stirred the soup, panic bubbled up. Had she lived this moment before? The haze of déjà vu enveloped her, as the night transformed from cozy to claustrophobic. Was it fear? Or was it all in her mind? The very next evening, a soft knock startled her. Mrs. Jenkins, their ancient neighbor with weary eyes, presented a pie, her face warm and welcoming. Yet, as they chatted, Sarah found her gaze drifting toward the fence, spotting a hooded figure lurking just beyond the shadows. Her heart raced. The figure vanished like a specter, and the air thickened with tension. "Did you see that?" she stammered, but Mrs. Jenkins chuckled softly, as if Sarah were imagining things. Was she? Anxiety wrapped tighter around her throat, feeding into a growing storm of paranoia. Then the strange unease began to seep through her neighbors too. There were whispers about moving away, voices laced with panic and desperation. As days turned into dark nights, unsettling conversations and false smiles became synonymous with her neighbors. Just when Sarah sought to ease her dread, she faced hostility when she invited a family over for dinner. An argument erupted, but it was shrouded in secrets that felt suffocatingly important and dangerously concealed. What could they be hiding? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah decided to dig deeper. At the local library, stacks of dust-laden newspapers led her to disturbing truths about a school shut down for dark reasons, whispers of tragedies hidden in plain sight. Each piece she unearthed weighed heavier on her heart. She began to see her neighbors' smiles not as friendly gestures but as veils hiding fears they could not escape. Then, her heart stopped cold when a missing child flyer appeared at her doorstep, the smiling face unmistakably Chloe's. What's happening? Was she tied to this tangled web? The life she thought was safe shifted into a bizarre nightmare. Cold dread danced between shadows, every corner of her quaint home dripping with a fear she couldn't shake. The familiar sounds of Maplewood twisted into gruesome echoes, blending joy with terror. And as the sky darkened, Sarah found herself standing at the edge of her yard, a barrier between her safe life and encroaching horror surrounding her. Somewhere out there, secrets brewed, threatening, sinister, forcing her to question the very fabric of her reality. What happens when the home you thought was a sanctuary unravels into a nightmare? A voice whispered back, fold deeper as the impossibility of her situation settled in. She knew one truth. The curse of déjà vu held the key to something unimaginable hidden beneath the surface. As the night pressed in like a suffocating blanket, Sarah stood frozen in her yard, eyes darting toward every rustle in the shadows. Chloe's laughter echoed in her mind, blending into a haunting melody that twisted into screams. Chills crawled up her spine. She turned back toward the comforting glow of her home, but the warmth felt colder, as if the walls were closing in. Suddenly, the doorbell rang sharp and jarring. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest. Who could it be at this hour? She approached the door cautiously, glancing through the peephole. Her breath caught. It was Mrs. Jenkins, but she looked different. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the door. "Dear, we need to talk now," Mrs. Jenkins whispered, glancing over her shoulder nervously. "About what?" Sarah asked, the unease creeping back as Mrs. Jenkins stepped inside, shivering. "There are things in this neighborhood, things you don't understand. You shouldn't have dug so deep," she cautioned, voice hushed, breaths quickening. "Digged into what? The school? The missing children?" Questions tumbled out, fear and frustration intertwining. She needed answers. Mrs. Jenkins shushed her, her voice barely above a whisper. "I shouldn't be saying this. They're everywhere watching." "Who?" Sarah pressed, inching closer. "The Pact," Mrs. Jenkins blurted, eyes darting to the curtains. "If they find out, you know." Suddenly, a loud bang resonated from the backyard, muffling her words. They both jumped, adrenaline surging. Sarah's stomach twisted. Chloe was out there alone, laughter turning to silence. "Chloe!" Sarah screamed, dashing for the back door. In a flash, Mrs. Jenkins gripped her arm. "Don't go. It's not safe." But Sarah's mind rang with fear for her daughter. "She needs me. I won't let anything happen to her." Bursting into the backyard, reality shattered. Moonlight spilled onto the scene, illuminating a series of footprints, small, child-sized, leading toward the woods at the edge of their property. The air felt electric with danger, a dark pull urging her to follow. She raced toward the figures behind the trees, heart pounding, dread pooling in her veins. "Chloe! Where are you?" Panic edged her voice higher. The silence was deafening, thick with the scent of damp earth and an uncanny chill that sent shivers spiraling down her spine. Where were her neighbors? Why was no one coming to help? And just like that, from the depths of the trees, she saw it, a glimmering object catching moonlight, something small and bright yet sinister. Breathless, Sarah stumbled forward, hope flickering in her chest. Was it Chloe's lost toy, or something far more sinister? Then, as she reached out, the shadows converged, swallowing her scream. Light flickered in the distance. She blinked, lost in a swirling confusion of déjà vu. The moment felt eerily familiar. Voices began to echo, whispers mocking her. They seemed to say, "You can't escape." Heart racing, Sarah stumbled back, grasping for clarity, for her daughter, until a chilling realization struck. What if the kids were never missing? What if they had never existed except in a continuous cycle of déjà vu destined to repeat? As she spun around, breaths shallow and quick, she was met with cold emptiness where the familiar charms of her home had been. The air grew heavier, pressing down. Was any of this real? Did she truly hold the key? But as the darkness threatened to close in, a name slipped from her lips, a single word that reverberated against her mind: Chloe. And then, everything went dark. What had become of her? Was this the curse of Maplewood tightening its grip with every heartbeat? The truth, twisted and tangled, screamed for release, demanding to be unveiled. But how? Would she find her daughter in the suffocating grip of déjà vu, or was there a deeper horror waiting to consume them both? The darkness slithered around Sarah, suffocating, thickening like smoke. She couldn't decipher the shapes that loomed within. All she felt was the weight pressing against her chest. Shadows scampered just out of reach, and her name echoed in a chilling, mocking tone: "Sarah, Sarah, Chloe." She shouted into the abyss, her voice trembling. Each breath felt shallow, laced with the foul taste of fear. Time had twisted. Was it seconds or hours since she last saw her daughter? Out of the gloom, a flicker of light appeared, a faint, dancing glow, pulling her closer. Struggling against the magnetic force of dread, she moved forward, but the ground felt unstable beneath her. Each step was a war, her instincts shouting to stop. Yet, all that mattered was finding Chloe. As she reached the appendage of light, it flickered sharply and vanished. The sudden absence left her shivering in the void, a cold embrace wrapping around her. "Mommy?" A soft voice broke through the blackness, high-pitched yet cracked, as if it had been trapped, muffled by some unseen barrier. "Chloe." Hope surged in her chest, igniting a desperation that propelled her deeper into the murk. "Where are you?" Help! The plea hung heavy in the air, striking something primal within her, a mother's fear, fierce and wild. But as she stumbled forward, shadows shifted, coiling tighter. Then, abruptly, a figure materialized, stepping into the half-light with eyes glistening. It was her daughter. But not quite. Chloe stood there, a wisp of a girl, worn and ragged. Her expression was vacant, as if caught in a dream that wasn't her own. "I'm lost, Mommy." Chloe's voice was haunting, filled with a sorrow that seeped into Sarah's bones. Grasping her daughter's shoulders, Sarah felt the coolness radiating from her, an unsettling contrast to her daughter's warm presence just moments ago. "I'm here, Chloe. I'm here." But as she gazed into those familiar eyes, they didn't seem to see her. They were glazed over, vacant. "Mommy, they're coming, they're going to take me." Her daughter's words dripped with fear, genuine and penetrating, sending a shiver racing down Sarah's spine. "Who?" "Chloe, who's coming?" Suddenly, laughter erupted, high-pitched and sharp, echoing from the trees. The shadows shifted again, a wave of darkness moving closer, engulfing them. Sarah felt her heart pound against the rising tide of panic. The woods were alive with whispers and sinister giggles. "Run!" Sarah screamed, tugging at Chloe's wrist, but her hold slipped through like smoke. "Stay with me." Now, all around them, faces emerged from the darkness, familiar yet twisted. Neighbors blended into shadows, their expressions warped into grotesque masks of joy. The haunting laughter was joined by taunts, muffled phrases floating through the air. "You can't escape, Sarah, you're one of us now. Please." Chloe shrieked as the darkness clawed at her. Sarah reached desperately, her fingers brushing against the coolness of Chloe's skin, just a hair away from pulling her back. But the shadows gripped tighter, stealing her daughter's form, reshaping her into one of them. "No!" Sarah roared, forcing herself against the suffocating pull of the darkness. Reality shattered in a flash of blinding light. Sarah gasped, pulled back into her mind where the weight of dread clung to her like a second skin. Was it another cycle, trapped in this nightmare? Had the pact begun to unravel around her? The name echoed once more, calling her back into that dreadful world, Chloe, and then it hit her, a realization as dark as the night wrapping around Maplewood. She needed to confront the pact, expose them all. But how could she unravel a darkness that already claimed so many? As she blinked against the dawning light, she felt a flicker of hope mingling with the terror. Yet, somewhere within, a chilling thought lingered: what if she was already too late? Would she truly discover the depth of this sinister secret, or was she just another pawn in their cruel game? Sarah's heart raced as she stood alone in the chilling morning light. She darted her eyes around, half expecting the darkness to surge back at her, pulling her back into its suffocating grasp. The woods around her were deceptive. An ordinary gray mist hung low, twisting the familiar trees into grotesque figures that seemed to lean towards her, whispering treachery in the breeze. "Think, Sarah. What do you know?" she muttered, pacing in frantic circles, struggling to remember any scraps of knowledge about the pact. They were more than just a secret society, weren't they? She recalled the hushed tones of gossip, the fearful glances exchanged between neighbors. An unease thrummed beneath the surface of normalcy in Maplewood, a deep-rooted fear that connected them all. Determined, she made her way back home, an instinctual urge pulling her toward the basement. It was there that she had hidden Chloe's drawings, the ones that made no sense but felt important, twisted landscapes, shadowy creatures, and twisted faces that looked like those lurking in the darkness. Each image popped into mind unwelcomed, igniting questions that had nagged at her subconscious. As she descended the stairs, Sarah felt the air thicken, almost alive with menace. Each creak of the old wooden steps beneath her sent chills racing down her spine. The faint light bulb swung above her, casting erratic shadows that danced against the damp walls. She hesitated at the bottom, trembling. What if the darkness hadn't just been a nightmare? The basement was cluttered and suffocating, filled with years of the family's forgotten items. She reached for the box in the corner, the one crammed with Chloe's lauded art. As she pulled it into the light, it felt heavier than she remembered. The contents spilled out crinkled papers, drawings scrawled in crayons, a broken toy. But it was a particular drawing that caught her breath, Chloe standing beside a figure with a sinister smile, their eyes devoid of life. Why didn't I see it before? Sarah whispered, her fingers trembling over the page. She flipped it over, revealing her daughter's handwriting on the back. They want to play. A sudden chill swept through the basement, snatching her breath. Voices echoed in her mind, laughter that pierced through her resolve, wrapping around her like barbed wire. It was a taunt, chilling and haunting. Come play with us, Sarah. She stumbled backward, clutching the drawing, heart racing, panic overwhelming as the shadows seemed to extend from the corners of the room. A door creaked open, not behind her but from the shadows, the other side of darkness, slithering toward her with promises of answers entwined with threats. Mommy? The soft, familiar voice slithered through the air, coaxing yet eerily distorted. Chloe? Sarah's heart leaped, her throat tightening. I found them, Mommy. They're here. The shadows pulsed, and for a second, Sarah almost believed. But as she squinted into the darkness, it warped and twisted, morphing into the shapes from her nightmares, each more grotesque than the last. No! I want to let you take her. She shouted. But the words felt impotent, swallowed by an oppressive tide of dread. The air crackled with cold despair, and her resolve floundered. In that instant, the basement exploded with sound, the cacophonous laughter, the shattering of glass as remnants of Chloe's world seized control. Her daughter's voice pulled at Sarah again, clear and desperate. Mommy, help me before they take me away. This time, there was no warmth, no glimmer of hope, just the terrifying truth that she was losing her grip on reality, on Chloe. Sarah felt the weight of shadows closing in, threatening to eclipse what little light remained. Terror surged through her veins as she stumbled toward the door, desperate to escape a fate that felt dangerously imminent. What if facing the Pact was not simply a confrontation, but her downfall? The air whispered around her, you cannot run. You belong here. Just before she fled, Sarah glanced back at the drawing. The figure, now watching her with malevolent glee, seemed to smile wider. More than a game, it was a hunt, and she was the prey. And as she pushed through the door, gasping for air, one question loomed larger than the shadows behind her: what price would she pay to reclaim her daughter? As Sarah burst through the basement door, the sunlight hit her with an almost ethereal warmth, but it felt like a lie. A false promise of safety wrapped in the impending dread that churned in her gut. Each breath tumbled out in ragged gasps as she leaned against the hallway wall, heart pounding. Her mind screamed for clarity as shadows flickered just out of sight, threatening to engulf her once more. She turned towards the living room, where the dimness held a comfortable embrace. Just yesterday, the space had been filled with laughter, Chloe's bright smile lighting up every corner. Now, it felt tainted, corrupted. The walls seemed to shrink inward, tightening around her like a net ready to ensnare. Chloe, she whispered, calling out for her daughter with desperation, her voice hanging in the cold air. No response greeted her. Only the haunting echo of laughter, the ghostly remnants of a family torn apart by secrets. A chill shot down her spine, overwhelming her with the sense that she was not alone. Moving cautiously toward the kitchen, she scanned her surroundings, searching for some shred of her daughter or a clue to fight against the darkness closing in. She grabbed the nearest item, a wooden kitchen knife, its once bright blade dulled by years of use. The cold handle steadied her shaking hands, offering a fleeting sense of control. Then, she saw it. The flicker of something in the corner of her eye, near the staircase leading upstairs. A shadow, darker than anything around it. She turned sharply, gripping the knife tighter, her heart pounding even harder now. "Show yourself," she barked, the challenge trembling on her lips. The air grew denser, she felt as if she were wading through treacle. The shadow shifted, swirling like fog before condensing into the grotesque figure she had glimpsed in Chloe's drawing. Its smile stretched impossibly wide, a sickening grin that crawled across its face, too obsessed with her fear. Its eyes glimmered, black as coal, watching her with an insatiable hunger. Sarah, it hissed her name like a morning whisper, coiling around her. "They want to play, don't they?" Her instinct was to bolt, but fear roots her feet to the floor. "What do you want?" she managed, trying to project strength while her insides roiled with panic. "Just a little game for a little girl." It leaned closer, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Join us, and we can share the fun." The walls seemed to throb, the laughter ringing in her ears, echoing from the shadows that deepened with each second. With a sharp gasp, Sarah regained her focus. "Stay away from my daughter," she shouted, anger igniting her voice. "That's the catch, isn't it?" It chuckled, the tone dripping with malice. "You must choose you, or your sweet Chloe." A cold sweat broke out along Sarah's brow. Choose. Her mind raced, grappling with the impossibility of it all. It was everything she feared, everything she hoped to avoid. The darkness twisted and pulsated, reacting to the weight of her decision. The creature slid back, dissolving into the gloom, but its presence lingered, a reminder of the terrible choice hanging over her. Could she truly save Chloe, or had she already lost her to that insidious game? Just then, a sound shattered her thoughts, a soft, familiar whisper floating through the suffocating air. "Mommy, help!" The plea cut through her like a knife, igniting a frantic rush through her veins. It was coming from upstairs. "Chloe!" she cried out, racing towards the staircase with renewed urgency, each step echoing her desperation. The darkness followed her like a predator stalking its prey. As she reached the top of the steps, she paused, heart hammering against her ribs. The door to her daughter's room stood ajar, a sliver of shadow spilling out like a spilled ink blot. With the knife clenched tightly in her hand, she pushed the door open slowly, the creaking hinges forgotten in her haste. What she saw rooted her to the spot. A scene torn from her nightmares lay before her. The room was filled with a dim, pulsating light that flickered in time with the oppressive laughter that filled the air. Shadows danced along the walls, forming shapes that were frighteningly familiar. "Chloe," she breathed out, but the word was nothing more than a whisper against the suffocating stillness. The floorboards creaked beneath her, a clear warning or a beckoning, she couldn't tell which. But one thing was certain, time was running out. A scream slashed through her thoughts. "Mommy! Help me!" Before Sarah could react, the shadows surged forward, threatening to plunge everything into the depths of despair. The choice loomed ahead: would she reject the darkness and confront the Pact, or lose Chloe to their games forever? She took a step into the room, a step towards an uncertain fate. What awaited her on the other side of that door? Did she dare uncover the true nature of the Pact? As the shadows reached for her, a chilling thought gripped her: sometimes, the most familiar faces hold the darkest secrets. The flickering light enveloped Sarah, casting distorted shadows that clawed at her from the corners. Her pulse quickened as she stepped further into the room, the wooden floor creaking ominously beneath her feet. Laughter echoed like a taunt in the thick air, threading through her spine and tightening her chest. "Chloe!" she shouted again, desperation threaded into each syllable. Nothing but haunting silence answered her, but she felt a chill bite at her neck, a sure sign someone or something was watching. The textures of the room shifted, folding in on themselves in an unsettling way. It was as if the walls themselves pulsed with a life of their own, alive with a malevolent intent. Then, just ahead, she caught a glimpse of blur of blonde hair, a tiny shape darting past the doorway of the adjoining hallway. "Mommy." The voice was faint, barely audible, but unmistakably her daughter's, Chloe. She gripped the knife tighter, rushing towards the door. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the light dimmed, snuffing out her hope with delicious cruelty. The air thickened, the shadows danced, curling and shifting, their shapes muddled and surreal. "Join us," they whispered, the words sticky like tar, spreading the weight of dread deep into her bones. The grotesque figure seeped back into view, its wicked grin widening, a malevolence that dripped from every corner of the room. "Will you play?" Each breath Sarah took felt labored, pulling against the oppressive darkness that constricted with fangs of panic around her throat. "What have you done with her?" she cried, her voice wavering but strong as steel. "Not done, just begotten," it hissed, languishing over its words like a predator toying with its prey. "Find her. She is waiting." As the creature melted back into the shadows, Sarah fought against the paralyzing fear clenching her heart. A sudden clang echoed, followed by muffled cries. That was Chloe. Driven by instinct, Sarah dashed toward the cry, heart racing, never daring to look back. Each step deeper into the darkness felt like stepping into an abyss. The memories of laughter and warmth twisted wickedly in her mind. Reaching another doorway, the scream pierced the air again, this time more urgent. "Mommy. Please." Before she knocked, chill dread settled in her stomach like a stone. What if her daughter was on the other side, truly trapped? What if the shadows had breached her innocence, laid claim to all she held dear? "What are you waiting for?" The darkness whispered with insistent hunger. "She's ours now." "No!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking through the veil of silence that wrapped tightly around her. She flung the door open, bracing herself for the horrors within. What greeted her stunned her into silence. The room was empty. An expanse of black nothingness. The whisper of Chloe's voice floated through the air, chilling her skin. "Help me, Mommy." But it echoed, fading as if emanating from nowhere and everywhere. Suddenly, the mirror on the wall caught her eye. Dark figures twisted within its glassy surface. Eyes flickered at her from its depths, malevolent, hungry, poised to invade her very soul. Sarah stepped closer, heart pounding, fear mirroring the shadows trapped there. "Chloe!" she cried, reaching out as if to shatter the barrier. The reflections held no answer. Instead, they transmitted a twisted version of her plea. They echoed the hollow sound of tall, dark figures, arms outstretched in mockery. "Help her or join us," panic surged, sharp and uncontrollable. The room throbbed as the darkness pulled tighter, the other side of the mirror ripping a new gash in her world. "Why one do you choose?" The shadows cackled, their laughter drowning her screams. The mirror began to crack, fissures splintering outward. Through the shards, fragments of Chloe's presence splashed forth, her daughter nestled in a corner, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy." Chloe's voice reached an ear-piercing crescendo. This was it. There was no choice left but to act. Sarah lunged toward the mirror, heart racing. But as she stepped forward, the laughter crescendoed. Falling through the glass, she braced for impact, her heart thundering with uncertain dread. What awaited her on the other side? The shadows shifted, and something even darker whispered her name. Could she handle the truth, or would the pact consume her too? She pressed deeper into the darkness, feeling the world around her collapse. The choice wasn't just for Chloe anymore, it was for her very soul. A rush of cold air greeted Sarah as she stumbled through the shattered mirror. The transition stung like a slap, pulling her from one nightmare into another. She was no longer in the familiar chaos of her home, she found herself standing in a dimly lit corridor, the walls lined with faded portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her, their gazes heavy with judgment. "Chloe," she cried again, voice cracking, heart racing. A silence suffocated her, thick and oppressive. The faint sound of rustling fabric flitted through the air, drawing her attention down the corridor. With every step, the floorboards creaked beneath her, reverberating with her heartbeat. Each portrait whispered in hushed tones, a cacophony of dark secrets that penetrated her fraying sanity. "Join us, stay with us," was a repetitive chant echoing in her ears, like a devilish lullaby promising comfort in exchange for her will. She pressed on, driven by the sheer desperation to find her daughter. The corridor warped around her, pulling her deeper into its depths. She stopped at a door, its surface battered and worn, as if countless hands had clawed at the wood to escape. With a deep breath, she pushed it open. The room was lit by a single, flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows that twisted and contorted across the walls. A rocking chair sat empty in the center, creaking back and forth as if someone had just vacated it. The air tasted stale, laced with the tang of something metallic. Then she heard it. Chloe's soft sobbing, muffled yet unmistakable, came from beyond a heavy curtain draped on the far side of the room. "Please help me." Chloe's voice broke through Sarah's panic, igniting an urgency she couldn't fight. She rushed toward the curtain, her hands trembling. But just as she reached for the fabric, it moved as if something was pressing against it from the other side. "Mommy!" The cry was more desperate now, a chilling alarm that stung Sarah deep in her chest. She gripped the curtain in both hands and yanked it aside. Nothing. Nothing but a wall, bare and cracked. Confusion and dread surged in waves as she stumbled back. The walls seemed to close in around her, mocking her with their silence. Then the air thickened, the shadows felt alive, expanding like a dark breath, swirling around her. In dizzying haste, she turned to see the rocking chair violently shaking. It was no longer empty, an indistinct form sat in it, back to her, swaying relentlessly as if haunted by memories. "Chloe?" The figure turned slowly, revealing a distorted face, the skin stretched, eyes sunken deep into the skull, dripping with dark shadows. "Mommy?" The creature rasped, but the voice was wrong, twisted. It mocked her daughter, a vile imitation that froze her blood. "Get away from her!" Sarah screamed, gripping the knife tightly in her hand, her only weapon against the horror gripping her heart. Suddenly, the air crackled, and a laughter erupted from the walls themselves. "Find her, save her, or join us." The voices melded together, a deafening roar that rattled her bones. Her surroundings began to blur, colors swirling in a cyclone of despair. Panic surged, her heart racing in protest against the oncoming storm. She had a choice: stay and fight this thing or plunge deeper into the unknown for her daughter. As the shadows danced closer, reaching their talons toward her, Sarah turned on her heel, racing back down the corridor, the echo of her daughter's voice trailing behind, warped and fading. She knew what she must do: she had to find Chloe, once and for all. But just as she rushed toward the next door, another figure loomed against her path, a woman, pale with hollow cheeks, her mouth curled in a sinister grin. "You won't escape that easily." The weight of her decision loomed heavily now. Would she spare herself the horrors ahead, or would she embrace them to rescue Chloe from the cursed grip of this nightmarish reality? The darkness coiled around her, whispering doubts and wicked truths. What if there is no way back? With the stakes now higher than ever, Sarah knew the next moment would alter everything. She couldn't turn back, there was no retreat. What would she face on the other side of this door? Would she find Chloe, or something even worse waiting to pounce? Only one thing felt certain: time was running out. The woman stepped closer, her breath visible in the chilly air, swirling with a sickly sweet stench that clawed at Sarah's throat. Panic seized her chest, squeezing tighter than before. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to escape this malignant presence, but the weight of desperation for Chloe held her rooted for a moment longer. "Where is my daughter?" Sarah shouted, clenching the knife in her hand like a fragile lifeline. The figure laughed softly, the sound dripping with disdain and flickering like the broken bulbs above. Your daughter? She's here, somewhere lost among the whispers. The woman gestured vaguely down the corridor, her skeletal fingers pointing toward the darkness. But be careful. The way has many faces. They all want you to join them. Sarah stepped back, heart pounding against her ribcage, every breath becoming harder to draw. I want to let you take me. The resolve surged within her, a flicker of defiance amid the growing despair. Without waiting for a response, she turned and sprinted back down the corridor, its endless stretch consuming her like a black maw. The floorboards groaned underfoot, as if sharing her terror, questioning her purpose. Sweat trickled down her spine, merging with the cold sweat of fear. Mommy? The voice echoed again, pulling at her heart like a knife expertly twisted. Chloe. I'm coming. She cried out, her voice echoing in the corridor's confines, swallowed by shadows. Ahead, another room loomed, this one slick with darkness. She pushed the door open, a heavy creak announcing her entrance. This chamber felt more oppressive than the last, an invisible weight pressing down, making it hard to breathe. A low hum filled the air, like a hive buzzing. The walls were bare, but the floor was littered with small, broken toys. Sarah's breath hitched as she recognized the worn doll, Chloe's favorite. A sudden wave of nausea washed over her. Chloe. Suddenly, the hum transformed into whispers that caressed her ears, dark and intimate. Here, with us, they wrapped around her like chains, binding her will. She stumbled back, the knife slipping from her grasp, clattering to the floor. The hum crescendoed into screeches, filling her with a sense of dread so profound it felt like an icy hand gripping her heart. Glaring shadows began to rise from the corners, forming more distorted figures, familiar faces twisted in grief, anger, and despair. Each one represented choices lost, lives intertwined in torment. The faces morphed as they approached, revealing their true forms, people who had vanished, defined by their unfinished business or their insatiable hunger for another soul to join them. Come play with us, they beckoned, their mouths curling into eerie smiles that held no warmth. Sarah shook her head violently, screaming, no. As she forced her legs to move despite the paralysis of fear clenching her every thought, just as she turned to flee, a hand grabbed her wrist, cold and clammy like a grave. Don't go. You belong with us. The voice was a chorus of trapped souls, seeping into her thoughts, causing her to falter. Her eyes darted around the room. Desperation clawed at her throat as she noticed a door behind one of the figures, a door barely illuminated by a sliver of light peeking through the cracks. It could be a way out or another trap. Mommy, help! Chloe's voice rang clear again, breaking through the turmoil, more like a beacon than before. Sarah jerked away from the grasp, adrenaline propelling her toward the light. She pushed through the figures, feeling them claw at her sides. The whispers turned to screams, angry, pleading as if she was forsaking them for freedom. She reached the door, throwing it open in wild desperation and stepping through. Suddenly, the world shifted violently. The walls closed in, bearing down as shadows blanketed her vision. She fell into the new room, breathless and disoriented. A familiar sight greeted her, yet twisted, a mockery of Chloe's room, but painted in darker shades, the toys scattered yet eerily still. The room vibrated with an echo, a heartbeat steady yet ominous. In the corner, there was a figure crouched low, rock still against the wall. Chloe? Sarah whispered, fear creeping back into her veins. Her heart raced as she squinted through the dim light. The figure turned slowly. It was another girl, lost in the shadows but undeniably familiar. Mommy. I was scared, but the eyes she met glistened with malevolence, twisted like the others. As realization dawned, bile rose in Sarah's throat. Was it truly Chloe? Time was slipping through her fingers, and in that moment, Sarah knew she faced the ultimate choice. To stay and uncover the truth, or flee further into this murky abyss. But which path would save her? And what awaited her in this forsaken room? The girl's eyes, dark and hollow, pulled Sarah in. Each blink felt like an eternity. Mommy, please." The voice twisted, warping through the air like smoke. It was Chloe, but it wasn't he. Two different versions of the same child locked in an eternal battle. Sarah took a tentative step forward, her instincts fighting against her desperation. "Chloe?" She whispered again, voice trembling, clutching the edge of hope. "Mommy, I need you." The girl grinned, a flicker of familiarity mixing with something sinister. She extended her hand, yet the movement sent a chill racing up Sarah's spine. "Don't touch her." A raspy voice called out from the shadows. Another girl emerged, this one with features just shadowed enough that Sarah could barely see, yet she felt the intensity of her gaze cutting through darkness. "She's not who you think she is. They want to trap you here." "Who?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding in dread, glancing from one girl to the other. "The ones in the walls, the whispers." The new girl swayed as if the very air around them was oppressive. "They'll take you, just like they took me." Behind them, the walls flickered, darkness seeping through the cracks. "Come play with us," the voices echoed, now mingled with laughter and cries. It was a cacophony of torment, each sound a thread pulling Sarah deeper into despair. "No!" Sarah shouted, shaking her head fiercely. "I don't want to play." She felt the gravity of her decision pressing down, pushing her toward either girl. "Chloe needs me." Just then, the other girl smiled wider, teeth sharper than any child's should be. "Mommy will get you out." "Isn't that right?" The seductive syrupiness of her voice elicited unease, pulling Sarah's heart into the chasm of uncertainty. The door behind her creaked louder, threatening to close. Shadows danced nearer, still clawing at her sides, swirling around her like smoke. "Mom, please. It's dark here." Chloe pleaded, her voice cracking against the impending evil. "Don't listen to them. They want to feed off your fear." The other girl shouted, lunging slightly forward. But the shadows stiffened in response, their whispers rising to a shriek. "A price must be paid," they hissed, echoing through the air, filling every crevice of Sarah's mind. "Join us, forever give in." "No!" Sarah screamed, dread flooding through her. "I want to leave you, Chloe." The girl she originally thought was Chloe twitched, her smile fading for just a moment. "Mommy, help." In an instant, the room shifted again, walls vibrating violently, blurring the edges of reality. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, panic wrapping around her throat. "What do I do?" she screamed, searching the twilit space. Everything felt like a trap slowly tightening its grip. Shadows loomed larger, faces morphed and merged. The dark girl reached for her. "Stay with us. You can't escape." Sarah felt a flicker of resolve spark deep within, the love for her true daughter igniting a primal fight. "I choose Chloe." But the two girls lunged, one toward her heart, the other to snatch her thoughts. Whispers clawed at her ears, drowning out her screams. "Join us." The shadows coalesced, racing toward her as Sarah felt weightless, torn between her child's love and the harrowing darkness threatening to consume her whole. As she grasped for Chloe's hand, the room shuddered, feeling like it was collapsing in on her. And then everything went black. In the suffocating silence, a voice whispered close, "Welcome to the void. Are you ready to play?" The unknown awaited Sarah, holding secrets yet to unfold what darkness lurked beyond the depths she now faced. A heavy silence surrounded Sarah as darkness cocooned her, suspending her in endless stillness. It was surreal, weightless, like being caught between consciousness and dream. She felt herself hanging on the precipice of terror and hope. The chilling whisper lingered, "Are you ready to play?" It echoed, taunting her, shaking her core. But beneath the fear, a flicker of defiance ignited in her heart. "Where's Chloe?" Sarah demanded, her voice carving through the emptiness. "I'm not here to play your games." The silence settled, thicker than before, and the shadows began to shift. They twisted and danced chaotically until a figure emerged, a grotesque imitation of her daughter, arms outstretched, eyes glimmering with darkness. "Mommy," it crooned, voice maudlin and haunting. "We've been waiting, Chloe. You're not her." The instinct to fight surged through Sarah. She stepped back, her mind racing, weighing her options. This dark reflection was a twisted amalgamation of her love and nightmares, a puppet crafted from her deepest fears. "Join us," it hissed, its form flickering like a dying flame. "You'll never have to feel alone again. You can be with her forever." Adrenaline coursed through Sarah's veins. She wouldn't give in. "No. You think I'll abandon my daughter? I'd cross hell itself to save her." She charged forward, determination fueling her every movement. The darkness recoiled, forming a wall of black that pulsed with rage. "You linger too close. You can't escape the pact." Flashes of Chloe's laughter returned warmth amidst chaos, reminding Sarah of who she was truly fighting for. The love forged through sleepless nights, scraped knees, and whispered bedtime stories erupted into a blazing resolve. "I choose love," Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the haze. "I choose to fight." Suddenly, the shadows shrieked, their form fracturing as they writhed against her declaration. The room spun violently, reminiscent of the chaotic storm outside her home. Everything felt alive, wild, threatening to implode under the intensity of her will. "Chloe!" She cried again, hoping her voice would reach her daughter. "I will find you." With every ounce of willpower, she pushed through the wall of darkness, forcing herself into the fury. Colors burst forth like fireworks illuminating the void, fragments of light seeping into her surroundings. Each light held a piece of truth, memories shared with Chloe, a kaleidoscope of moments that made life beautiful. The shadows screamed, their power wavering as the whispers faded. "You can't reject us." But Sarah didn't stop. Each step resonated with love growing stronger, forcing the darkness to shrivel as she moved onward. And through the relentless grasp of despair, she spotted a glimmering door in the distance, framed in shafts of golden light. "Chloe!" She lunged, nails scraping against the rough surface of the door. With an earth-shattering crash, it swung open, revealing a vibrant world washed in the colors of day. Darting inside, Sarah emerged into her little girl's room. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating Chloe's once familiar toys now strewn across the floor. "Chloe?" Sarah gasped, hope surged within her like a wildfire, engulfing every shadow of doubt. Then, she heard a muffled sobbing from beneath the bed. Without hesitation, she dropped to her knees and peered underneath. There was her daughter, scared but alive, clutching a faded stuffed bear. Tears streamed down Chloe's cheeks as her eyes locked onto Sarah's, filled with pure, untainted joy. "Mommy!" Chloe leaped forward, wrapping her tiny arms around Sarah's neck. The warmth hit Sarah like a tidal wave, crashing over her, washing away remnants of fear. Sarah held her baby close, relief flooding her being as time stretched blissfully in their embrace, but echoes of darkness lingered on the edge of her senses. "The pact will not rest," they whispered, their tone simmering with malice. "I want to let them take you again." She spoke fiercely into the budding light, fire igniting within her. "They're not in charge, love is stronger than anything they have." As Sarah rose, the shadows recoiled, writhing like snakes thrown into sunlight. They hissed in agony but began to evaporate, losing hold of the room. With every word Sarah spoke, her love for Chloe pushed them further into oblivion, and then, the air settled. A soothing silence enveloped the room, light pouring in like a blessing, illuminating every corner, a guardian chasing away the darkness. Together, they would conquer the fear that had clouded their reality. Together, they would rewrite the rules of Maplewood. "We're safe now," she whispered to Chloe as they stepped forward, embracing the sunlight cascading into their lives. The future stretched out ahead, bright and untamed, untainted by the shadows that once threatened to consume them. They stepped into their freedom, embracing the warmth of a fresh start, ready to leave the haunt of the past behind. But somewhere, out there in the depths, the darkness seethed and waited. Now, if you liked this story and want more thrilling tales, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't forget to smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and get this story out there. We want to hear your thoughts. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and jump into the next chapter together.